Captain Lee Minho stared through the viewport of the exploration vessel. Harmony as massive black shapes materialized from empty space. The alien ships were enormous, each one 10 times larger than Earth's most advanced starships. Their dark hulls seemed to absorb light, making them look like moving holes in the starfield. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," reported Communications Officer Kim Yuna, her voice tight with nervousness. It's not like anything we've ever seen before." Minho felt his heart racing. This was it. First contact with an alien species. Everything humanity had dreamed of and feared was about to happen. "Put it through," he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that definitely wasn't human. The being was tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow from within. It had 4 arms instead of 2, and its face was longer than a human face, with large eyes that looked almost colorless. "Primitive vessels," the alien said, its voice coming through their translators in perfect Korean. "You will follow us. Your leaders will come aboard our command ship immediately." Admiral Kang Jisoo had been waiting for this moment her entire career. As Earth's chief diplomat, she had trained for first contact scenarios, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. The alien ship they were brought aboard was massive beyond imagination. The corridors were filled with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. More aliens waited in what appeared to be a meeting room. Besides the tall, pale ones, there were insect-like creatures with hard shells and clicking sounds coming from their mouths. Dr. Park Taeon, Earth's best expert on alien life, walked beside Admiral Kong, taking notes on everything he saw. The lead alien, who introduced himself as High Commander Thalvex, looked down at the human delegation like a teacher examining disappointing students. "So these are the creatures from the 3rd planet," Thalvex said to his companions. "Look at them. So small, so weak. Their skin is so soft it would tear with the slightest touch." One of the insect creatures made a series of rapid clicking sounds. The translator converted it to laughter. "They live less than 100 of their planet's cycles," it said. "How can they accomplish anything meaningful in such a short time?" Admiral Kang tried to maintain her dignity. "We come in peace," she said, using the words that had been planned for this moment. "Humanity wishes to establish friendly relations with your people." More clicking sounds that translated as laughter. Thalvex looked at her with what might have been amusement. "Friendly relations. You misunderstand your situation completely. We are not here to make friends with you." Dr. Park watched as the aliens began discussing humans as if they weren't there. They talked about human biology, like scientists examining insects. They mentioned human emotions as if they were a disease that needed to be cured. They discussed human technology as if it were barely more advanced than stone tools. "Your species shows some potential," Thalvex finally said, turning back to address the humans directly. "But you are clearly too primitive to govern yourselves. You fight wars against your own kind. You damage your planet with pollution. You waste your short lives on meaningless activities." The High Commander walked around the human delegation, examining them like a buyer looking at livestock. "We have decided to help you. The Vorthok Empire will take control of your world. We will organize your people properly. We will teach you how to be useful." "You're talking about invasion," Admiral Kong said, her diplomatic training barely keeping her anger in check. "We won't accept that." The insect creatures clicked again, and even Thalvex seemed amused. "You won't accept it? Look around you, primitive creature. Your best ship is like a toy compared to ours. Your weapons couldn't scratch our hulls. Your entire military could not defeat a single one of our vessels." Dr. Park felt sick as he realized the truth. The aliens were right. Humanity had no way to fight back against this kind of technology. Earth's nuclear weapons, their most powerful tools of destruction, would probably be useless against ships that could travel between stars. "We offer you a choice," Thalvex continued. submit peacefully, and become useful servants of the Empire. Learn to follow orders and work efficiently, or resist and watch your species become extinct. These are your only options. The message was broadcast to Earth immediately. Within hours, every human on the planet watched their leaders kneeling before alien masters. The aliens didn't try to hide their contempt. They spoke about humans the way humans might talk about training animals. Earth's government leaders gathered in emergency sessions around the world. Military commanders looked at their weapons and knew they were useless. Scientists studied the alien technology and realized humanity was centuries behind. Politicians debated options that didn't exist. In the end, there was only one choice that wouldn't result in the complete destruction of humanity. Earth's leaders announced their decision to the world. They would accept protection from the Vorthok Empire. The aliens had won without firing a single shot. They had conquered, not through violence, but through the simple demonstration that resistance was impossible. Humanity's weakness had been exposed for all to see. And now they would learn what it meant to be considered inferior by beings who saw them as little more than clever animals that needed proper training. The orbital stations appeared almost overnight. Massive metal structures that blocked out portions of the sky, casting shadows over entire cities. Dr. Kim Suman watched from her laboratory window as the third station locked into position above Seoul. The alien ships came and went, like busy insects, carrying supplies and equipment that humans weren't allowed to understand. Dr. Kim, you will report to Sector 7 for your new assignment, announced the mechanical voice that now controlled all human communications. The Vorthok had replaced every government system within 2 weeks of their arrival. Suman packed her few allowed belongings and made her way through the city. The streets looked different now. Red zones marked areas where humans weren't permitted. Blue zones indicated work areas. Green zones were living quarters, though families had been separated and reassigned based on what the aliens called optimal productivity groupings. Her new workplace was a converted university building. Inside, she found dozens of other scientists, all working under the watchful eyes of Vorthok supervisors. The aliens moved between the workstations on their long legs, their forearms manipulating equipment that seemed to respond to their thoughts. You will catalog biological specimens, researcher Kethmer informed her, his translator making his voice sound emotionless and cold. Begin with human genetic samples. We require complete data on your species' reproductive capabilities. Suman sat at a workstation that looked like a cross between a microscope and a computer. As she worked, she listened to Kethmer explaining to another supervisor why humans needed to be corrected. Their breeding cycle produces too few offspring, the alien said, examining data on his screen. Their emotional systems cause irrational behavior. Their bodies break easily and heal slowly. Clearly, extensive genetic modification will be necessary. At another workstation, Dr. Park Jinwoo was analyzing human brain scans. He caught Suman's eye and very slightly shook his head. Both scientists had realized the same thing. The aliens were planning to change humanity into something completely different. Across the city, Lieutenant Colonel Choi Hoon-woo stood in what used to be City Hall, now converted into a labor coordination center. Hundreds of humans lined up each morning to receive their work assignments. Some went to construction sites where alien technology was being installed. Others went to farms that were being converted to produce alien food. The youngest and strongest went to facilities that no one talked about. Today you will work on Station Construction Project 7, Choi told a group of former soldiers. He handed out identification badges and work permits, but his real attention was on the alien guards. He had been watching them for weeks now, learning their patterns, their shift changes, their weaknesses. The Vorthok guards never seemed to sleep, but they did have periods where they stood completely still for exactly 37 minutes. Their attention focused completely on whatever they were assigned to watch, but they couldn't see anything happening outside their designated area. Most importantly, they didn't understand human body language or facial expressions. That afternoon, Choi walked through the work sites, officially checking on productivity. Unofficially, he was passing information. A slight nod to construction worker Lee Daeon meant the guards changed shifts at 2 p.m. A casual comment about the weather to engineer Yang Minji meant the north entrance has no sensors between 3 and 4 a.m. The humans had developed a system of communication that the aliens never noticed. Maintenance worker Bae Sung-ho would leave his tools in specific positions to indicate guard movements. Teacher Lim Dae-hee, now assigned to alien food production, would arrange vegetables in patterns that told other workers which areas were safe to talk in. Dr. Kim Soo-min discovered that her alien supervisor couldn't tell the difference between compliance and subtle sabotage. When she submitted her daily reports, she included real information about human genetics, mixed with carefully altered data that would make the aliens' modification attempts much more difficult. Human DNA shows unusual stability. In chromosome group 7, she would write, knowing that this would send alien researchers down a completely wrong path. Emotional response patterns appear linked to cosmic radiation exposure. She would add information that was completely false, but sounded scientific enough to fool aliens who didn't really understand human psychology. In the evening, in the converted dormitory where scientists now lived, Soo-min would share her discoveries with others. Not directly, that would be too dangerous. Instead, she would mention during dinner that she was having trouble with unstable samples in the refrigeration unit. Dr. Park would understand that she meant the aliens were storing human genetic material in a specific location that might be vulnerable. The aliens thought they were seeing perfect human cooperation. Workers showed up on time, followed orders, and completed their assigned tasks. What the Vorthok didn't understand was that humans could follow orders while simultaneously planning resistance. Factory worker Han Mingi would assemble alien equipment perfectly during the day while memorizing every component and figuring out how to disable it. Farmer Kim Tae-ho would grow alien food crops while secretly testing which earth plants might be poisonous to alien biology. Teacher Lim Dae-hee would sort alien supplies while creating detailed maps of their storage facilities. The resistance network grew through shared glances, casual conversations, and the simple human ability to find hope even in the darkest situations. The aliens had dismissed human culture as worthless noise, never realizing that this same creativity was now being used to plan their downfall. Every day, the network of information grew stronger, hidden in plain sight by the very human traits the aliens considered weakness. 6 months had passed since the orbital stations first appeared in Earth's sky. Dr. Kim Soo-min had spent every day cataloging human genetic samples under alien supervision, but her real work happened during the brief moments when the Vorthok weren't watching. She had discovered something important about their biology that could change everything. It started by accident. During a power surge in the laboratory, the emergency lighting system activated, flooding the room with bright white light. The supervisor, researcher Kethmer, immediately stumbled backward, his translucent skin turning dark red. He covered his eyes with all 4 arms and made sounds that the translator couldn't process. Equipment malfunction, Soo-min reported quickly, switching off the emergency lights. But she had seen enough. The alien see-through skin wasn't just unusual, it was a weakness. That evening, in the dormitory cafeteria, she sat next to Dr. Park Jin-woo and mentioned, casually, that she was having problems with the lighting equipment, making the samples difficult to see. Park nodded slightly, understanding the coded message. Over the following weeks, Soo-min tested her theory carefully. She learned that certain frequencies of light caused the Vorthok physical pain. Even more interesting, their heart rate patterns became irregular when exposed to specific strobing lights. Their multi-chambered hearts, which normally beat in a complex rhythm, could be disrupted by precise light pulses. Meanwhile, across the city, technician Li Jiwan was making her own discoveries. Her job was to maintain the alien communication, erase the massive towers that connected Earth to the Vorthok Empire's network. The work required her to access the alien computer systems, though always under strict supervision. Working alongside systems engineer Yang Minseo, Giwan began to understand how alien technology really worked. The Vorthok computers were incredibly advanced, but they had one major flaw. They assumed that all intelligent beings would respond logically to any situation. "Watch this," Ji-Wan whispered to Yang during a maintenance break. When their alien supervisor was busy with another technician, she entered a series of commands into the communication system that appeared random but followed a specific pattern she had developed. The system tried to process her commands, searching for logical meaning that wasn't there. For 17 seconds. The entire communication array froze as the quantum processors attempted to find patterns in pure randomness. When the system finally reset itself, it had lost some stored data. They can't handle unpredictable input, Yang realized. Their whole system expects logical responses. The information spread through the resistance network in their careful, hidden way. Colonel Choi Hoon-woo received the message through maintenance worker Bae Sung-ho, who arranged his tools in a specific pattern that meant important discovery about communication systems. Choi had been building his own intelligence network across the globe. Farmer Bae Sung-ho reported from rural areas where alien food production facilities were located. Factory worker Han Minji sent information from industrial centers where alien equipment was manufactured. Teacher Lim Dae-ho worked in the alien education centers, where humans were being taught to serve their new masters. Through this network, Choi learned that the insect-like Skrith had their own vulnerabilities. Lim Dae-ho discovered this while working in an education facility where both Vorthok and Skrith supervisors worked together. The bug ones communicate through smell, Lim reported during a carefully planned meeting in an abandoned subway tunnel. When maintenance sprayed pesticide near their work area, they all started behaving strangely. They couldn't coordinate with each other. Dr. Park Jin-woo, now working directly in alien research facilities, had access to their historical databases. What he learned changed everything the Resistance thought they knew about their enemy. The Vorthok Empire had conquered 47 different worlds. In every case, the pattern was the same. They would arrive with overwhelming force, demonstrate their technological superiority, and wait for the local species to surrender. It always worked because intelligent species made logical decisions when faced with certain destruction. But there was something else in the records. The aliens had detailed psychological profiles of every species they had conquered, but they all shared one trait. When faced with certain death, these species chose survival over resistance. They had never encountered a species that would choose to fight even when fighting meant death. They don't understand sacrifice, Park explained to the other resistance leaders during a secret meeting in the old subway system. Every species they've conquered has been rational. When faced with overwhelming force, they surrendered because surrender meant survival. They've never fought anyone crazy enough to fight back against impossible odds. This was the key that unlocked everything. The aliens had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced opponents who used fear and desperation as motivation instead of letting it paralyze them. Colonel Choi began developing what they called Operation Silent Storm. The name came from humanity's ability to endure suffering, while quietly preparing for revenge, something the aliens couldn't understand or predict. The plan was ambitious and dangerous. They would use every weakness they had discovered, the Vorthek's vulnerability to certain light frequencies, the Skrith's dependence on pheromone communication, the aliens' inability to process truly random actions, and most importantly, their complete failure to understand opponents who would rather die fighting than live as slaves. The resistance network had grown to include thousands of humans across the planet, all connected by their shared determination to be free. The aliens saw only obedient workers. They had no idea that beneath their notice, humanity was preparing to teach them what real fear looked like. The attack began exactly at sunrise on what the Resistance had secretly named Liberation Day. For months, humans across Earth had been waiting for this moment, preparing in ways their alien occupiers never suspected. Li Guan sat at her maintenance station in the Alien Communication Center, just like every other morning for the past 6 months. Her Vorthok supervisor, Engineer Valthor, barely glanced at her as she began her routine system checks. But today was different. Today, Jiwan's fingers moved across the alien controls with deadly purpose. She uploaded the harmonic virus that she and Dang Min Seo had spent weeks developing. To the alien systems, it looked like normal maintenance data, but hidden inside the code were sound frequencies that would destroy the quantum processors from the inside. System integration complete, Jiwan reported calmly to her supervisor. Velthor made a sound that translated as approval and moved to check on another workstation. He had no idea that his communication network was already beginning to die. Across the city, Yang Minseo was doing the same thing at the central processing facility. She fed random data patterns into the alien computers, not truly random, but chaotic enough to overload systems designed to find logical patterns in everything. The Vorthok quantum processors began consuming enormous amounts of power, trying to make sense of information that had no sense to make. High above Earth, Captain Park Ji-hoon crawled through the maintenance tunnels of Orbital Station Alpha. For 3 months, he had been mapping these tunnels during his assigned work shifts, memorizing every pipe, every junction, every access point. The aliens never suspected that humans would voluntarily enter spaces too small for Vorthok bodies to fit. Behind him crawled 12 other humans, all former military personnel, who now worked as maintenance crew. They carried improvised explosives, made from cleaning supplies and industrial equipment. The aliens had given them access to everything they needed to destroy the station's life support systems. Remember, Park whispered to his team, we only get one chance. Hit the oxygen recycling first, then the power distribution, then the communication arrays. The aliens had never considered that their maintenance workers might sacrifice themselves to damage critical systems. In their experience, intelligent beings always prioritized their own survival above tactical advantage. Down on Earth, teacher Lim Daeho sat in the Alien Education Center where he had been forced to teach human children about their improved future under Vorthok rule. But instead of teaching the approved curriculum, he was uploading something very different into the Alien Education Network. Stories began flooding into Vorthok command centers through their own communication systems. Stories that their translators dutifully converted into their language, filling alien minds with concepts they had never encountered before. Tales of human soldiers who continued fighting even after receiving wounds that should have killed them. Mothers who had killed alien guards with their bare hands to protect their children. Civilians who had chosen to die rather than submit to genetic modification. Workers who had sabotaged critical systems, knowing they would be executed for it. The Vorthok commanders tried to dismiss these as primitive propaganda, but the stories kept coming. Thousands of them, each more disturbing than the last. The aliens began to realize they were fighting an enemy that didn't follow the basic rule of self-preservation that governed all intelligent life. Dr. Kim Soo-min's role in the attack was the most dangerous of all. Working in the alien medical facilities, she had spent months developing biological weapons, specifically designed to exploit Vorthok immune systems. Their translucent skin, which looked so advanced, was actually extremely vulnerable to Earth. Bacteria that had been modified in very specific ways. She released the pathogens into the station's air, recycling system just as the communication networks began failing. Within hours, Vorthok personnel across Earth began falling ill with diseases their immune systems had never encountered and couldn't fight. But the most effective part of the resistance came from ordinary civilians who had been dismissed by the aliens as harmless. Factory worker Han Mingi had spent months studying the patrol routes of alien guards in Seoul. She knew exactly when they would be where, and she knew the city's underground systems better than any alien ever could. When the uprising began, Mingi lead groups of civilians through sewers and subway tunnels that the aliens didn't even know existed. They used children as scouts because the aliens never paid attention to human young. They turned kitchen knives into weapons, cleaning chemicals into explosives, and city buses into barriers. The aliens found themselves fighting battles in 3 dimensions, above ground, below ground, and inside their own systems. Human tactics made no sense, according to their strategic models. Why would humans fight in sewers when they could surrender safely? Why would they sacrifice their lives for tactical advantage when they could preserve their lives through cooperation? By the 3rd day, alien communication networks across half the planet had gone completely silent. Orbital stations that had seemed indestructible were now dark metal shells, drifting powerless through space. On Earth, alien patrols found themselves trapped in urban warfare against opponents who seemed to know the terrain better than should have been possible. The Vorthok Empire had conquered 47 worlds through overwhelming technological superiority, but they had never faced an enemy that treated their own death as an acceptable cost of freedom. For the first time in their history, the aliens discovered what it meant to be afraid. The alien retreat began on a Tuesday morning, exactly 28 days after Liberation Day had started. Admiral Kong Jisoo watched from the command center of what had once been Orbital Station Alpha, now renamed New Dawn by its human crew. The massive alien structure had been captured 3 weeks earlier when Captain Park Ji-hoon's suicide mission had disabled its life support systems, forcing the Vorthok crew to abandon their posts. Now Kong stood where High Commander Thalvex had once humiliated her. But everything had changed. The humans around her were operating alien technology they had learned to use through months of careful observation. Dr. Kim Soo-min worked at a bioanalysis station, monitoring the health of human crews who had been exposed to alien environments. Colonel Choi Hainwoo, now promoted to general, coordinated with resistance cells across Earth through communication systems that the humans had reprogrammed. "Admiral, we're detecting movement from the remaining Vorthok fleet," reported communications officer Lee Juan. The same woman who had destroyed aliens' communication networks now operated their most advanced equipment. "It looks like they're preparing to leave the system." Kong felt a mixture of satisfaction and disbelief. For months, the Vorthok had seemed invincible. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had developed. Their ships could destroy entire cities with single shots. Yet now they were running away like frightened animals. The alien fleet was a shadow of what had arrived nearly a year earlier. Half of their orbital stations had been destroyed or captured. Their ground forces had been driven off Earth entirely, after suffering losses they had never imagined possible. Most importantly, their confidence was completely broken. "Open a communication channel to their command ship," Kang ordered. "I want to speak to Thalvex personally." The main screen activated, showing the interior of the Vorthok command vessel. High Commander Thalvex appeared, but he looked nothing like the arrogant leader who had forced human representatives to kneel months earlier. His translucent skin was darker than before, and his forearms moved nervously. When he spoke, his translator couldn't hide the fear in his voice. "Admiral Kang," he said, his words carefully chosen. "We, acknowledge that our evaluation of your species was incorrect. We are withdrawing from this system immediately." Kang smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "You're leaving? But I thought we were just primitive creatures who needed your guidance. I thought our emotions made us inferior. Our short lives made us insignificant. Our fragile bodies made us useless." She walked closer to the communication screen, and Thalvex actually stepped backward. as if she could somehow reach through the transmission and hurt him. You spent months telling us how weak we were, Kong continued, how we needed to be improved, how our feelings and our short lives meant we could never accomplish anything meaningful. But you made one mistake, Thalvex. You confused weakness with helplessness. Behind her, General Choi watched the alien commander's reaction with professional interest. In all their intelligence reports, they had never seen a Vorthok show fear before. The aliens were always logical, always in control, always certain of their superiority. But now, their leader was clearly terrified. Your species is unpredictable, Thalvex said, his translator making his voice sound mechanical, but the fear was still obvious. You make decisions that serve no logical purpose. You sacrifice your lives for concepts that have no material value. You fight when fighting means certain death. This is ... This is not how intelligent beings behave. Kong laughed, and the sound made Thalvex flinch. That's where you're wrong. This is exactly how intelligent beings behave when someone tries to enslave them. You conquered 47 worlds because those species were smart enough to surrender when they couldn't win. We were smart enough to fight even when we couldn't win. Dr. Kim Suman approached the Admiral with a data pad in her hands. Admiral, the biological warfare report is ready for transmission. Kong nodded and took the device. Thalvex, before you leave our system forever, I'm sending you something. Consider it a gift from the weak, primitive humans to the mighty Vorthok Empire. She uploaded the file, and within seconds, it was being broadcast not just to the fleeing alien fleet, but throughout their communication network to every corner of Vorthok space. The report was simple and direct. Species analysis, humans of Sol system, physical capabilities, below average by galactic standards. Technological development, primitive. Logical reasoning abilities, adequate. Military threat assessment, extreme recommendation, complete avoidance of human territory. Note: this species uses emotional responses and self-sacrifice as tactical weapons. They appear to become more dangerous when faced with impossible odds. No known method exists for predicting or countering human behavior during combat situations. Within hours, the report had spread beyond Vorthok space to dozens of other alien civilizations. The message was clear. Earth was now off limits to anyone looking for easy conquest. You called us weak, Kong said, as she watched the alien ships preparing to jump to hyperspace. But you never understood that our weakness was our strength. We had nothing left to lose, so we had everything to fight for. The last Vorthok ship disappeared into the darkness of space, leaving behind a solar system that had learned an important lesson. Strength wasn't about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. Sometimes, the most dangerous enemies were the ones who had been pushed too far and decided they would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Earth was free, and the galaxy now knew that humans were not a species to be underestimated.